In 1980, a regional park in Kansas City opened Orient Express, a roller coaster experience that dwarfed the competition. This ride helped thrust that regional park called Worlds of Fun onto the national stage. Roller coaster enthusiasts from all over the world came to ride and rave about this new scream machine. However, the later years for this coaster were filled with maintenance issues and overwhelming competition. This hindered any chance of a good future for the ride, and the Express was shut down permanently. But why? How did this work of engineering art end up in the scrapyard? To answer that, we must first go back to 1971. Business partners Lamar Hunt and Jack Stedman were looking to contribute to the development of Kansas City, a flourishing city at the time. They would do this by constructing a $25 million entertainment center in the form of a theme park. This theme park would be named Worlds of Fun, and it officially opened in 1973 to much success. Based on the adventure novel Around the World in 80 Days, the park had 5 themed areas which consisted of Americana, Europa, Scandinavia, Africa, and the Orient. The park was quite popular in its infant years, but there were big things going on in the amusement industry at the time. In 1975, Aero Development premiered Corkscrew at Knott's Berry Farm, the first modern-era roller coaster to go upside down. 1 year later, in 1976, Corkscrew at Cedar Point expanded the layout with a vertical loop. And in 1978, Ron Toomer and Busch Gardens Europe went big with the wildly successful Loch Ness Monster. This beast wasn't like the others. It wasn't a drop into a couple of corkscrews. This was the first, and today, the only roller coaster to contain interlocking loops. While Worlds of Fun debuted their 4th roller coaster, Scream Roller, in 1976, it was a corkscrew model like the one at Knott's with little to no uniqueness at this point. But Hunt would reach out to Aero Development again to build something truly special and ambitious. On April 4th, 1980, Worlds of Fun debuted Orient Express. The custom Aero Looper attracted many casual coaster enjoyers and enthusiasts alike. And can I just say that this logo is absolutely dazzling? The addition proved to be worth the $4 million investment in just its first few years at Worlds of Fun. In the words of Aero's lead designer Ron Toomer, quote, "We were commissioned by Worlds of Fun to design a major coaster which not only provides an exciting ride experience but a spectacular visual effect." After a brief tunnel segment, a maximum of 28 riders ascend the 117-foot, 36-meter lift hill. This climb makes way for the menacing first drop, which is where the ride hits the top speed of 50 miles or 80.5 kilometers per hour. A turnaround sends riders through the first of the interlocking loops, then a mid-course brake run leads the train into the second loop. These loops look pretty fun, and the drops following the turnarounds look insane in the back rows. Following the interlocking loops comes a first-of-its-kind element, the kamikaze curve. Commonly referred to as a boomerang or a batwing today, this element starts off with a half corkscrew, finishes the first portion with a half loop, and does the same thing again but flipped. This double inversion looks intense, and it acts as a creative turnaround. Additionally, the kamikaze curve has been used on 11 other roller coasters since Orient Express, including the latter's successors, those being Vortex at Kings Island and Viper at Six Flags Magic Mountain. After a sketchy helix, the train glides into the final brakes. Fun fact: Orient Express was one of the very few rides to have featured a chicken exit. This was for anyone who got too nervous to ride. The coaster would continue to throw riders from all across the world without many issues, but 7 years after opening, this streak was broken. On June 15, 1987, a train on Orient Express bumped into another train boarding guests. Firefighters arrived at the scene to evacuate some of the riders, while others climbed from car to car to reach the station. 9 people were injured, and the cause of the accident was likely human error and failure to put safety before dispatch times. Ride operators would oftentimes override block systems to ensure the fastest operations. If you don't know what a block is, it's basically a section of a roller coaster's layout that can only occupy one train. Multiple trains are not allowed to occupy the same block. Orient Express had 4 block sections that consisted of the station, lift hill, the first half of the ride to the mid-course brakes, and the second half of the ride to the final brakes. Therefore, the coaster ran a maximum of 3 trains. What likely happened was that one train was boarding guests while another train hit the final brake run. A ride operator then attempted to override the block systems, and that's when the second train collided into the first train. You could say that this started the downfall of Orient Express, because in 1992, Six Flags Great America debuted Batman the Ride. This inverted roller coaster manufactured by Swiss newcomers Bolliger and Mabillard took the amusement industry by storm. B&M would continue to make smoother roller coasters using computer-assisted design or CAD, while Aero's older hand-designed coasters showed their age. Unfortunately, Orient Express succumbed to this, and the ride experience started to become janky and rough. Meanwhile, in 1995, Lamar Hunt and his company sold Worlds of Fun to Cedar Fair, with Timberwolf in 1989 being his last big investment. Cedar Fair immediately got to work removing Zambezi Zinger in 1997 and debuting Mamba 1 year later. With Timberwolf and Mamba, Orient Express looked to have a bright future, but no one expected what came next. On July 17, 1999, a train completing the course on Orient Express partially derailed, leaving passengers in the back two cars dangling over 30 feet or 9 meters in the air. Firefighters arrived at the scene to evacuate the stranded park guests. This ended up taking 2 whole hours, and 13 people were rushed to the hospital. Luckily, they were released soon after without any serious injuries. Further investigation of the ride suggested that internal fatigue in one of the supports was the primary cause of the accident. The fatigue in the support was not noticeable to the naked eye, and a regular inspection likely wouldn't have revealed the damage. This accident plagued the coaster's popularity, and maintenance costs rose into the early 2000s. With all of these factors becoming more and more apparent, Cedar Fair had to make a tough decision. On October 29, 2003, Worlds of Fun made the official announcement that Orient Express would close for good. Its final day of operation was 3 days prior, on October 26, 2003. The reasons of closure were listed as high maintenance costs and sites on future expansion. Longtime parkgoers were deeply saddened at the removal of a classic, and the park had already started demolition before the end of the season. I can't imagine the sorrow of driving up to Worlds of Fun at the start of the 2004 season and not seeing Orient Express towering over the skyline. Instead, it was the legendary and beautiful Spinning Dragon. Anyways, in 2006, Worlds of Fun invested $14 million into the true successor of Orient Express. Patriot is a B&M inverted coaster that still sits on some of the land that the Express once occupied. Honestly, it's quite ironic that the ride model that made Orient Express amongst all the other aging Aero coasters look outdated was the one to replace it. Additionally, the sign for Orient Express's chicken exit is still in use today in Timberwolf's queue, and the station is being used for a seasonal haunted house. While some may still miss the thrilling experience of that big and bad classic, Worlds of Fun debuted Prowler in 2009 and gave new life to the park recently with Zambezi Zinger, a nod to one of the park's other classics. And with the 2026 FIFA World Cup on its way to cities like Kansas City, I can see Cedar Fair investing in this park even more very soon. But in summary, the Orient Express was a truly innovative and awesome looking roller coaster that impacted so many coaster fans and enthusiasts alike. The story of this once dominant roller coaster should be one to remember, as this was a classic that will never be forgotten.